Hello, I'm Deborah Malone, founder of The Internationalist and host of Internationalist Marketing TV. Today's guest is Eric Feinberg, expert on cyber information warfare and vice president of content moderation at the Coalition for a Safer Web. Eric, what a pleasure to see you. You've got some very important things to talk about, so welcome to the show.
Thanks, Deborah. Thanks for having me today.
Oh, pleasure. Really a pleasure. Well, look, why don't we start very broadly? The Coalition for a Safer Web is a nonprofit organization that is really working to shed light on terrorist, extremist content, hate speech, violent activity, illegal drug sales, all on the social media landscape. So just fill us in a little bit. Are its goals to inform consumers or to influence legislation or both? Just give us a little background just about the origins. I'm sure the audience would be quite curious.
Well, the origins of Coalition for Safer Web was actually started by former Ambassador Mark Ginsburg back in 2019. And, the original goal was to educate, inform, and also through technological means, reduce or eradicate extremist, anti-Semitic content on social media platforms. Mark asked me to join latter that year in 2019, and I kind of brought, because as I was also in the same sphere as Mark with anti-Semitism, extremists, tracking ISIS on social media, one of my passions is also going after the sale of illegal drugs and illegal activity on social media, which is a criminal enterprise and could be funding terrorism. So that's how it came together back in 2019.
Well, talk about a noble mission. Let's start with a couple of things, because your original background is in advertising and marketing. So talk about that journey, about how you got involved with something like a Coalition for a Safer Web.
Well, my background was in advertising, but I had a very unique, field in advertising. I was involved in experiential marketing, basically connecting or working with major brands in real-world experiences around entertainment and sports venues. So, literally, it was by taking sponsor activations and, sampling or connecting what I always called brands and fans. In the mid 2005, 2006, as I was working for them, some of these brands, and a lot of the talent I had were young students who attended, schools in the New York area, Fashion Institute, some of the other schools involved who were my brand ambassadors. I kind of learned about social media because it became a way of being able to monitor or track their work while they're in the field. Instead of me giving them cameras, they said, "Hey, Eric, we got this new thing called Facebook. We could show you what we're doing to get." And that's how I learned about it. And then what happened was, as it sort of evolved social media back in 2007, 8, 9, the brands and some of the leagues I was working with, like the NFL, they wanted to kind of experiment how these kind of sponsorship activations could be seen or do, which I would use the analogy as the stage at a Super Bowl, at a NASCAR event became a studio, because you could actually see then the fan experience and the brand engaging, and then use social media to get the virility and get the numbers up.
But you also had some experience with the NFL and some counterfeit issues. Is that also true?
Yeah, that's what started me on this journey. Is when I was working for the NFL back in 2011, 2012, promoting their major sporting events such as the Super Bowl, Pro Bowl. As I was posting for the NFL-related content for the Pro Bowl and Super Bowl, I started to get sponsored ads from Chinese counterfeit enterprises selling and merchandising counterfeit jerseys on Facebook. So literally, I would put something up, a photo or a comment about NFL related, which they were paying me for. And right next to that post would be a sponsored ad for $15 NFL jerseys. Now, I knew they were counterfeit because I knew at that time, even a replica licensed NFL jersey, at that time Reebok, was $100. Also, the other tell was the dollar sign was next to the right, so it would be 15. And I started then looking into this and mapping it out and saying that it was coming from China. Now, one of the interesting things, and this fits in even where we are today, this was my first real, going down the road of algorithmic amplification. Because if they were putting ads for counterfeit NFL jerseys on my newsfeed and what I was posting, that means Facebook had to be sharing with Chinese counterfeit enterprises that I was an NFL fan, even though I was working on behalf of the NFL. And that's what I said. I can't do this anymore because I feel it was compromised. And I just felt the whole thing was corrupted, which it was. This is in 2011, 2012. Nobody's gotten into these numbers that when Facebook was going public back in this era, how much of Facebook's revenue was, booked on non-companies or companies that didn't exist or Chinese counterfeit enterprise. And we put it back that, that a lot of these things were from China. The registrations were with Chinese registrars. And you look at this stuff and you'd say, some of this isn't even a real company. They were using actually the login pages of the website of Nike, Fanatics, reputable US companies. And, you have to question yourself, were these legitimate companies, or what exactly was the end game of these? Was it to sell you a jersey or get your contact information and credit card?
Well, that's an interesting point, but you did something that's quite extraordinary because you invented a unique patented cyber research tool, which I believe you call AI2,
Well,
and it's really anticipatory intelligence. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's anticipatory because it relies on anomalies or things you can anticipate that if you put it in, and again, if you had access to the API, you could actually block or sandbox certain kind of content based on anomalies. Well, what's an anomaly? NFL jerseys are not $15. Louis Vuitton bags are not $45. You can't buy a prescriptive drug without a prescription. The dollar sign. So literally what you do is, and you kind of do this based on behavioral patterns of anomalies, developed a pattern that if you look and feed a system, a portal, and basically alert the portal that this is unique or it's corrupt, the portal will then give you other corrupted type websites or accounts that are doing the same corruption based on key patterns.
Well, you make it sound so easy, but I'm surprised that something like this isn't in widespread use, or perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps it is.
Well, a couple of things that it really, for it to work, is you have to allow the website, the social media company, the platforms, to give you access to their APIs. If you don't have access, all you're doing then is literally just giving them the byproduct and not getting the root of the problem. So the analogy I use is that it would be like me going from my sink through the sewer line to your sink to clean the drudge out of your sink, but not getting in the root of the problem, because the problem is your sink. And that's the problem. It's just, we are working with the platforms and we are giving them the results of the output, but we're really not accomplishing anything other than just weed whacking, because what we really need to do is get rid of the roots of the weeds or understand how the whole forest works, as opposed to just chopping down a tree.
Yeah, but it gives me hope in that there certainly are possibilities. You just need to exert a certain amount of pressure, which I know is not easy, to make people realize the value of it. Let me ask you something else that's related. Didn't the Coalition for a Safer Web also develop a framework for a social media standards board?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that and how it might be possible to be involved.
Yeah, we evolved it to where, and I think it's now called the Social Media Monitoring Board, which because standard was kind of ambiguous. And what the monitoring board is, what I said is, and where it is that right now, what you really have, and really a lack of understanding how this works, everybody treats the problem on the individual silos or verticals, where it's actually the whole universe of social media platforms. So what you post on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and then the encrypted apps such as Telegram, WhatsApp, Signal, um, even now Trump's new True Social. What everybody's doing is looking at that one silo and saying, okay, this is what's happening here. But there's a lot of similarities to what goes on between the platforms. So what you see posted on one platform and you say it's usually going on the other. And when there's a lack of sharing and communication between these platforms, so if you find something bad on one platform, usually it's going to be on 6 to 7 other platforms. And then having the content or context of how these posts are uploaded and what terminology is used around these posts. So for example, I'll give you 2 examples, one having to do with drugs. I found a variation of the word pharmacy, pharma. Now, it's getting around the sale of illegal drugs. It's getting around the monitoring systems of social media platforms because the social media platforms and encrypted apps think it has to do with farm-related products. But it's actually the sale of illegal drugs. To take it one further, it's actually a brand out of Mexico called Farmer Brand that is acting on every one of these social media platforms from Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snap. And literally, it's like multi-level marketing with individuals who are basically acting as mules of distributors in the United States of Mexican Xanax. And literally, they're using the term in plain sight, Farmer Brand. Now, I know this across all the platforms, but yet the individual platforms don't know it's the sale of illegal drugs. And 2, they don't know this illegal drug activity is happening across all the platforms with the term Farmer Brand.
Well, how do you make them care?
You try the best you can, and go to Congress, give examples, do like I did last year with NBC News, Kate Snow, the interview I did where we showed the illegal drug sales going on Instagram with then ads appearing around it. But there seems to be a lot of talk that we're going to do something in Congress with passing laws to protect against this nefarious activity. But yet, there's a lot of talk, but nothing seems to get done.
Well, let's look at another route, particularly, given some of the views of government versus corporations right now. What about marketers? How can marketers care? How can they help the situation? Because essentially they are the ones that are funding the advertising on the social media platforms. Is there a way to make them better aware of this? Or I know that I saw you posted quite positively about what Dove has done on their toxic influence program, which I also applaud on many levels. Not only what they're doing but how they've taken it another step to actually trying to do a bill. But there's got to be ways that you can work with marketers or their agencies to, if not create awareness, at least make some of them realize how detrimental this is.
We've tried, and they've taken some steps where I think there's a lot of rhetoric. There's some efforts being made, but there's just not enough where I think of it's an awareness campaign, but not enough like we're doing. We're actually getting a better idea through technology of what's going on and using technologies like ours to really get to the root of the problem.
And then I guess you're hoping that if you amplify that to the consumer, that consumer pressure might help legislation, which is one of the issues. But also, I would think that marketers have to be very much concerned about their consumers as well, because brands don't exist without consumers either. So there's got to be a way, and I don't know if people just turn off to just the amount of bad news that's out there, or I always think that they don't know what the next steps are that they should do. You know, should they write letters? Is there a letter that they can reproduce and send to their congresspeople? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you've done this noble work, but I guess the next step is to make it have more traction.
Well, you bring up consumers. I'm involved with a group of parents, mostly mothers, like Mothers Against Drunk Driving, who've come together under this umbrella of Fair Play or the Action Network. And it's sad, and together, because of the losses they have of a daughter or son, they put together, monthly meetings or going to Congress, and getting involved to get laws passed to protect, especially young people. You've heard of COSA, right?
Mhm.
Kids Online Safety Act,
Mhm.
which seemed to have a lot of steam in the last Congress. And I think it passed the Senate, with Martha Blackburn and Blumenthal, Republican and Democrat even. And then for some reason it stalled. It didn't pass in the House. So, my thing is, because social media, especially like TikTok, Snap, and the newer platforms, Instagram, skewed to younger audiences, parents need to take a bigger role to understand what's going on here. And also, in addition to pressuring their legislators, put additional pressure on marketers to
Mhm.
basically, like Dove did, to do, to ask more questions or hold these platforms accountable to go, what are you doing to reduce or eradicate the content? That's what I did in the Kate Snow Today story last year. We showed the Instagram ads of corporate America. I think Disney, Peloton was appearing around in my Instagram newsfeed, illegal drug sales. So you would think, after that interview I did, which is on the Today Show, got numerous replays across all NBC's platforms, you would think that some advertiser or agency would contact me, but really not much has gone on with that. So it's kind of like, when you look at this, every day real harm is happening to especially young people, through this lack of oversight and rhetoric when it comes to the content being posted to these social media sites.
No, you make a good point, and like everything else with so much going on, how do you get someone's attention, not only their attention, but how do you then turn that into action and a movement almost to make a difference? And I think you make a good point about parents and maybe taking a look at the brands that do advertise to young people, and I'm sure it's a variety of categories, whether it's food or whatever it might be. Well, let me ask you something then. If you had a wish list of what you'd like to see happen in this expanding world of social media influence and artificial intelligence and so on, what would it be? Would the changing legislation be the answer, or what would it be?
Yeah, changing legislation. I think Section 230. I think what it is, and I bring up, what happened with Fox and Dominion. Look at what happened at Fox. Dominion was able to sue Fox because of a defamation and went to court. And whatever it is, they came to an agreement. But you can sue existing media, and there's no law that says that an existing media company cannot be held liable. Unfortunately, because of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, these platforms can be sued, but they're being thrown out because of the Section 230, which gives immunities to the platform.
So in other words, they're not defined as media. They're essentially defined as technology.
Yeah, defined as kind of bulletin boards. I use the analogy that when the law was written in 1996, it was kind of static. You had AOL, Netscape, and it was the bulletin board. Because of the algorithms that put the content in front of you, it's not the bulletin board. The platform is providing the pen, the paper, and the tack, which is a lot different than when the law was written in 1996. The Communications Decency Act of 1996, which is now 27 years old, has not evolved with where the technology is, especially these algorithms that put this nefarious content in front of the end user.
So
And it's
what's
all
holding it up? Is it lobbying on behalf of the platforms?
combination, and I think a lack of knowledge by legislatures of what's really going on here. You have, I'm sort of an anomaly. I'm kind of a baby boomer who understands this kind of technology. You don't have a lot of legislatures who really understand what's happening here, especially when it comes to these newer platforms such as Snapchat, TikTok, even Instagram, and especially the roles that the algorithms play in putting the content in front of you.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it's the algorithms that changed all, but it just seems amazing to me that so many other things get updated that something like this just would not. Um, well, it sounds like you are only going to continue to carry on the fight. And what's next for you and the Coalition for a Safer Web?
Well, it's continuing, what we're doing, but also, hoping that, we are a nonprofit and to continue, the research we do and continuing to evolve the technology and continuing, to work on the policy side. We're going out and hoping to get, people who see, the work we're doing, it's out there, and who want to contribute or donate. Again, we are a nonprofit to help us, continue this work because, we feel, what, again, this is important work. And at the same time, in many levels, is to identify, reduce or eradicate, hate speech, anti-Semitism, extremist content online, and also the sale of this illicit content, such as illegal drugs on social media content, platform.
Well, I would, it's just funny, and maybe I'm just thinking simplistically here, but I would imagine that it would be in the best interest of any platform to show their genuineness in terms of wanting to be more of a force for good in communications, why they wouldn't partner or fund a nonprofit or contribute to a nonprofit that's very much in their space, trying to make their space better.
Well, I don't know if that's true. Look at what Elon Musk has done in Twitter. I mean, it's just the opposite. Since he's taken over, he's allowed neo-Nazis back on it, QAnon. So it's kind of like, and of course, he's paid for it in a lot of ways because most large advertisers have decided not to advertise on Twitter. So I don't necessarily know if that's really what they want. I think it's all about them audience and then going, what the audience is to go back to advertising and say, look, we've got, 200,000, 300,000, a million, people using this and justify, their ad rates. Okay. And that's what they're doing. So I don't necessarily know if that's what it is. And again, the business model, which is sort of like surveillance advertising, the same business model that puts nefarious content in front of you is also the business model that puts ads in front of you, because the content you get is based on what you engage with as far as content, and the ads you get are based on what your search parameters are while you're on the platform or not on the platform. So it's kind of a sort of a flawed business model, or for them to go after the content side of the equation would definitely deter, or what they're doing on the business side, which is putting ads in front of you just as much as content.
Do you think consumers understand that? I mean, I don't think consumers are stupid and they realize that they're being followed by ads everywhere.
I don't know if they do. I don't know if they really care. Especially they really don't, especially people my age who most of them use Facebook still to connect with their kids. They don't care. They don't see it. It's really a shame that they think it's cool, that they don't understand, just the negative activity of it. They think it's cool to continue. They still think they're connecting with high school friends or showing off their trips or, going to a concert or doing something. And I really don't think they see the lying in nature of what's happening here, because they only see what they're connected to their 200 to 300 friends who they knew from high school or college, as opposed to when you go, underneath it,
Yeah, no, well, look, I wish you well, and I know that you need a tremendous amount of support to be able to continue some of these efforts. I think that your anticipatory intelligence is quite extraordinary, and it would be wonderful to see the evolution of this and the work with Section 230. So why don't we stay in touch, and you can keep us updated on some of these things, and hopefully there'll be a larger groundswell of people who want to make that difference.
Well, thank you, and thanks for having me, Deborah.
A pleasure. Take care.
Thanks.
The Internationalist focuses on the continual reinvention of marketing by highlighting inspirational marketers around the world and their ideas as they move the industry forward. Internationalist Marketing TV shares these perspectives through interviews and personal stories. Thanks so much for watching. If you find this kind of content helpful, please click like or subscribe. Again, thanks so much.